um, we're on our way, evolution. And they mention the line, life is so much more than it seems. We're all going to open our eyes and see. It's not just our little world, it's the whole of God. It's the whole of the world that's the reality. And they're talking about that journey of becoming. Today we're going to talk about the joy of becoming. And we all seem to have this life goal to become all that we can be. And I think we have a slide for this. Yes. And we want to, in the journey of becoming, we want to fulfill our dreams. We envision becoming our highest self with joyful expectancy. So how do we do that? How do we find that joy of becoming? Now, we've been talking this month about the winter solstice is approaching, and so we're talking about taking a pause to reflect on our life's journey. And that was part of what Dr. Edward Viljoen spoke about in that reading that Brenda shared with us this morning. The days get shorter and shorter, darker and darker, until there is a pause, a stillness, before that cycle turns and the days begin to get longer and longer. But in that stillness, our attention turns from that busy outside world, and it's really busy with the holidays coming up, and we hear that still small voice of God, eternally present within our hearts. And this is the voice of God, the infinite divine, that is expressing itself in us, through us, and as all of creation. Each one of you is a part of that creation. Each person that that we hold in our minds, our dear ones, and the people that we know when we don't know it, ripples out into the world. It is all God. And so, in Exodus, in the Torah, which is what the Christians call the Old Testament of the Bible, there's a story about Moses and the burning bush. Now Moses is out in the fields. He's tending to his father-in-law's flock of sheep. And the angel of the Lord appears to Moses as a burning bush that's not consumed. And so he sees it from a long ways away, and he goes over close to it and starts to approach it. And as he approaches, God calls out to him and says, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Well, Moses, when he hears this, he hides his face because he's afraid to look at God. And particularly in the Jewish religion, the whole thing of seeing God is very, there's all these issues around it. And so, but God goes on in the conversation, and God tells Moses to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt. So here's Moses tending the flock. He's supposed to go to Pharaoh and say, "I'm going to take the Israelites out of Egypt." Right. And so in the conversation, Moses asks God, "Well, who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God replies, "I will be with you." And Moses asks, "Well, what shall I tell the Israelites is the name of the God of their fathers, so they'll believe me?" Right? And God replied with one of the most important messages in the Bible: "I am who I am. I am that I am. Tell them I am has sent me," Moses, "to you, Pharaoh." Now sometimes that is translated, "I will be what I will be," or "I am the one who always was." There's two important things to remember from this. First, God is not becoming. God already is. God already is everything and has always been everything. So the becoming is just a perception, right? Coming from the potential into the form, from the spiritual into the form, but it's always been. And the second thing is that each of us is a part of God that is expressing God. God acts through us. We are the form that God takes in this world. Now, Ernest Holmes explained this in the Science of Mind textbook. He said, "We are not becoming this life, but are now in and of this life. There is no other life. God is not becoming, God is. God is not growing. God is complete. God is not trying to find out something. God already knows." Evolution is not the expression of a becoming God, but it is simply one of the ways that a God who already is expresses itself, and as such is the logical result of involution and is eternally going on. Right? So involution is that divine potential coming into form. It's not just haphazard. It's not just the fossils leading one to the other, but it is the actual divine intention coming into form. Now, at the divine level, there is no becoming. God already is. And so we are parts of God that are expressing that infinite potential that already exists. God is pouring itself through all creation. It's like God is creating this magnificent sculpture, right? But God is every part of the process. God is the intention. God is the putty, or the formless substance that the sculpture is made out of. And the finished sculpture itself is God. It's all God, the intention, the process, the law, and the body, the sculpture. So now the reason we exist in the first place is because we are a necessary part of the unfolding of the divine. In this pause for the winter solstice, take the time to really drink in this spiritual truth. Marinate yourself in it, if you will. We have a greater awareness of what was already there in the first place. God is and has always been. We are an integral part of the divine, each one of us, the one life that is God. This realization, when we really get it, it's life transforming. Right? Be still and know that I am God. When we remember that we are part of the one infinite life, it just shifts my whole perspective on life entirely, right? It's easy to get so intently focused on what we're doing as individuals, on reaching our goals and getting it right, that we lose sight of the bigger picture. We can lose sight of all the other people in the world and their points of view as part of the one life. We have our troubles or our successes or whatever we're doing, but that's only a small part of the wholeness of God. It's an important part, but it's not all of it, right? And so as we become, in the stillness, aware of that spiritual truth that we are a part of the one life, right? Whatever we're doing is always a part of something greater than ourselves, right? When we move, the ripples ripple out into the universe, right? We do not act alone. All those other lives are part of us. Whatever we choose to become as we live our lives, these possibilities already exist within the infinite potential. And we are just creating a pathway for the infinite to express itself, what already exists, in form. It's an amazing relationship. Now, when we go through life, we drill down deep to deal with life issues, and I know I can really do this well. I can put those blinders on and just get in the middle of trying to deal with something and making it right. As the minister of the Center for Spiritual Living Tahoe-Truckee, I get focused on leading the center. Getting everything right. I want the Sunday service right, and the technology to be right, the classes, and recruiting volunteers, working with the board. And right now we're recruiting an office administrator. This is a conundrum to me at this point in time. Where can we find this new person? What skills do they need? how could they afford to live here in the basin with the salary that we pay for a part-time job? Why do the administrators we hire not stay more than 6 to 8 months? What is Spirit trying to teach us? So really, I'm really focusing on this outer manifestation, my physical actions, my thinking, and this person. And so it's focusing on the physical world. But in the stillness, I can shift my attention to that 30,000 foot level, that level of oneness, which is really the universe level, right? And then I can remember that I am always part of something greater. This is an activity of Spirit. All of God is working together to create that perfect office administrator and our perfect slot for them to fill. There is a match. I am just one part of the wholeness of God that is creating that perfect match right now. So my job is to let go of any sense of separation, any fear, my sense that I need to create anything alone by myself. Right? I must be still and know that God already knows the answer. God is already manifesting the perfect administrator in that office, working and having a great time and supporting our center as we support them on their life path. I need to work on my own consciousness so that is so, and that our center is worthy of this great new office administrator. Sometimes when things don't show up, it's because we don't think we're worthy, and we need to have something small and not the best, because this is what we deserve. But it's God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, right? That's God's intention. We're part of God. I mean, who would withhold things from their children? We are God's creation, and so it's ours to accept it, and with love and gratitude. Dr. Harry Morgan Moses, CSO minister, he says, change is inevitable, but growth is optional. We can keep on repeating the same pattern, or we can get still and listen to the divine guidance regarding the office administrator, or whatever issue it is in our lives, and manifest the divine possibility, the highest and best solution to this challenge. We have to sometimes let go of what we think it must be, and outlining exactly how we think it should be, and allow ourselves to embrace that greater yet to be. For me, this creates a dance with the infinite. I mean, it's an amazing process. And as I spend time in the stillness, my awareness grows beyond my own finite experience and brain power. The answers to my question come from infinite possibilities. They already exist in the infinite mind. And then they suddenly become open and available to my own finite mind. Barriers that seem to exist in my mind and my life, my worldly existence, they dissolve when I shift to that infinite perspective of oneness. The importance of my individual life and actions, it suddenly becomes the feeling part of creating a world that works for everyone. This is my part. What I seek, I already am. Discovering a new way of being becomes the joy of discovering and becoming my higher self, my divine self in form. Well, that's why it's so important to take the time to pause, get our consciousness in alignment with Spirit, with God. In some ways, it's like discovering heaven within. In the Declaration of Principles that Ernest Holmes wrote back in 1926, there's 12 principles of science of mind, and one of them is we believe that heaven is within us, and that we experience to the degree that we become conscious of it. And so there is heaven on earth, but and it already exists, part of the oneness, but we have to become conscious of it. And until we do, we're not experiencing it. Maybe little glimpses or so forth. But if we think we're living in hell, we'll continue to do that. But if we live in heaven, if we allow ourselves to open up to that divine intention, that's what we will start to experience. It can be a difficult shift that we come back to the old patterns, but gradually and gradually we see that and experience that as the truth at every moment. When we in this stillness, it's like being at the top of the roller coaster. When you go up that roller coaster, there's this slowly, you're cranking up the track, and there's that sense of anticipation as that roller coaster climbs up slowly to the top of the track, and then you get to the pinnacle. And there, in that stillness, we're aware of everything around us. And we are aware of what we were missing because we were so involved in the busyness. Because right now that roller coaster ride has our full attention. And then we experience that heaven within us, that life force within us. We feel very much alive. And we allow that joyful song and the life of God to shine through us. And that roller coaster goes down. And off we go into the world with a little different perspective. Ernest Holmes asks us in the textbook, let us learn to be still and let the truth speak through us, to be still and know that the inner light shines. In the stillness, we want to know without a doubt that we are one with God. Haven Trevino, in his book, The Tao of Healing, says, quiet the mind, be still, and watch the breath of God rise and fall into all things. Allow God's breath to be your breath. Allow God's nature to be your nature. That excitement as that roller coaster reaches the pinnacle. It's like the day of winter solstice, the absolute stillness and quiet. And then God unfurls itself as us. That potential is manifest. And our experience every moment of every day is very much alive. And so we have when we listen, it's like we awaken to the true nature of God in us. We live life in Technicolor. Right? When we encounter life's challenges, we are not limited by our finite experience and intelligence in the way it's always been in the past. Instead, our vision is open to answers and possibilities that come from the infinite intelligence, the infinite love, the power and presence of God within us and everywhere present. We can see things that were right in front of us that we never saw before. We can see through whatever seems to be happening and see that spiritual truth underneath and call it out. Right? Joyfully, I dance with the infinite. Right? There's a wonderful story that's told by Eliza Perlman. It's in the this month's magazine. Eliza is a master storyteller and a psychotherapist. It's a Taoist story about the rainmaker. It takes place in a village in China where no rain had fallen for a very long time. The monks tried everything. The locals had performed every single ritual to invoke the rain that they knew and some new ones, yet nothing had proven effective. It was still dry. So finally, they agreed to summon an old Taoist priest, known as the Rainmaker, to come and visit their village. So this quiet man, he arrived, looked around, and then he made a rather modest request. He said he wanted a quiet house to stay in, a small garden to tend, and to be given total solitude. Okay, so the villagers honored his request and left him alone. Well, on the fourth day, the rain began to fall. So the people were really excited. He's done miracles. This is so fantastic. So the people of the village ran over to the rainmaker, to that little quiet house, and they wanted to thank him for everything that he'd done. And he quietly said, I've done nothing. Well, they insisted, of course you have. After 4 days, the long-awaited rains, they came. Again he said, I did nothing. Before I came, I was aligned and in order with myself. Upon arriving, I became infected with the disorder that permeates this village. That's that race consciousness that's all around us that affects our lives. So these days of requested solitude, the days of tending to the garden, they were needed for me to restore my own inner garden of order. When I was able to do so, when my own inner consciousness was in order, then the rain began to fall. I did not make the rain happen. I only took responsibility for myself. It's an important metaphor for what the world is like today. We become so easily infected by our mental collective environment, so quick to mock and point fingers. If only this weren't this way or was this other way, that I'm sure it would be fixed. We're in a state of drought. Peace is tenuous. We're holding grudges. So many people are angry. We just focus on our personal world. We worry about and blame everyone else for everything wrong in the world around us. And if we remain this way, we ultimately contribute to a perpetual drought. Our responsibility is to restore our own inner garden of order. So to me, this story is a perfect reminder of the possibility and power of the meditative call to tend to our own world, to calm the noise, to bring forgiveness to the grudges, the vitriol, the division. We then remember that we are part of the oneness, of the divine, the wholeness of God. This is our true nature. We then create a hospitable place for peace to reign upon us in the world. Sitting in the pause, in the stillness, provides the opportunity to listen and reflect. And as we listen to that still small voice of God whispering to us, be still and know that I am God. Be still and come into the quiet glory and deep joy of God in us now. What we seek, we already are. We are already whole, perfect, and complete as a part of God, of infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite peace, and blissful joy. Let your spirit discover heaven within you and the joy of becoming on the outside who you already are on the inside as part of the one. Let's take this to prayer. So all of the hustle and bustle of the approaching holidays, the excitement, the stress, all the activity, I just let it go for this moment. In the stillness of the approaching winter solstice, the stillness of the falling snow, there is quiet, there is peace. I speak my word for every person who is hearing my voice, for each person who is a part of the one life that is God. In the stillness of this moment, I allow my conscious awareness to hear that still small voice of God within me, whispering, "You are my beloved son or daughter. You are a beloved part of me, of the one. All that I am is serving you and all of humanity. All that I am is expressing itself in you through you, and as you. It is my good pleasure to give you the kingdom. My heart gently opens wide to accept this infinite love. In this stillness, I know that all is well. All is God. I am ready for God to unfurl itself in me and through me and as my life. I let go and flow into that present moment with exhilaration. I let myself go down that roller coaster from the stillness and into the next moment, into the next and the next. One with God. Together. We live as a part of the one life. Always and continuously, I live as one with God. Divine guidance leads me forward with clarity. Answers to every question come as quickly and as clearly as the question itself. My whole body, mind, and spirit move with ease, with inner and outer strength and wholeness, perfect health. All around me, all of life, God's light supports me perfectly. Every need is met perfectly, graciously, and beautifully. And I let go with complete trust. My cup runneth over. I share my good with all of life. I am grateful beyond measure to know the truth of who I am, to live in perfect harmony with infinite love, peace, and joy every moment. I celebrate the stillness. I celebrate the coming acceleration forward. I trust God through the law to reliably bring this awareness into form in my life and everywhere. I dance with spirit now in blissful joy. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And together we say, and so it is.